Hi, today's video is going to be about working through your emotions. So, if you are anything like I was in the past or any of my clients, you realize just how much you're struggling in life and not just with one thing, maybe not just in your relationships, but it seems to impact and influence every single area of your life. And with everything, your emotions feel like they're all over the place. They're high, they're low, they're sideways, they're upside down, and you're trying to work through your emotions. And you probably didn't, but if you were to pick up on the language there, trying is a failure word. If you try something, you're failing. You're either doing it or you're not doing it. So you're either working through your emotions or you're not. But trying implies that you are trying, you're taking action and doing the things, but not getting the result or getting a different result. So trying to work through your emotions, that just sounds really difficult, and it often feels really difficult when you're trying to work through your emotions, and perhaps you're scouring the internet, reading articles and blogs and listening to podcasts and watching videos like this one that teach you or supposed to tell you something that's new, this breakthrough thing that is supposed to just make you magically feel better. And you're looking for that magic pill because you're at the end of the rope and you don't want to be there anymore because there's a lot on the line. Perhaps it's that relationship. Perhaps it's the relationship with a partner, significant other, the relationship with your kids, the relationship with your family, the relationships that you have at work, and these things that you need to be held together because if they fall apart, it feels like your life falls apart with it. And so you're trying to work through your emotions and realizing you don't like where you're at and perhaps looking for something to do to get you to a much better place. And we're going to go over one of the things that many of the clients that I work with have been given as advice, and what I was given as advice in the past. And I'm not going to name drop any journals because I've got millions of them, and I've paid lots of money for them on Amazon. And some of them are nice. Some of them, it's okay to get your feelings out so that you can work through those emotions that are connected with those feelings and those events that caused it. But then you realize you're just writing about it. So journaling is a thing that most people are given as advice. Well, just journal about it. And there's all kinds of journals. And I'm not knocking journaling. I think it works for some people, but for me, I just cannot find a method to make me consistent with it. And I've tried putting it, by my coffee pot. I've tried putting it by my bed. I've tried setting alarms, and it's just not a thing that works for me, but it's a thing that a lot of people are told to do. And you're told to grab your journal and then name the emotion. I am feeling worried. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling resentful. And then go into that. I felt angry, and then describe the feeling. I felt angry in my chest. I noticed my heart started racing. In my throat, it felt like there was a frog in my throat or a lump in my throat. In my head, I just got a major headache. Because the problem with this for myself and most people that I work with is that when you're focusing on that, whatever you focus on, you get more of. So when you're focusing on the emotion, the tension, the anger, the fear, the worry, the anxiety, the depression, you get more of it. And actually, that you're journaling about is in the past. And so you're putting yourself in the past. That's the cause of depression, is living in the past. Worry is about the future. So either way, you're taking yourself out of this present moment and you're putting yourself either in the past or in the future. Neither one of those things exist. So when you're doing that, you're just creating more of that. You're strengthening that. Go to the past and look for the answers. Where were they when you were there? Right? And if you don't like this video at this time, that's okay. You can stop watching it. Otherwise, you can stay with me. Journaling for myself and some other people actually can end up making you feel worse because you're naming the emotion. You're actually strengthening the feeling by paying more attention to it. And then you want to identify the cause. Here's where it gets really messed up. I was, right? And you're trying to think about it. You're trying to figure it out. Again, there's that word try, which implies failing. You're trying to think about it, trying to figure out to your feeling. I remember noticing, well, there were so many things. Your mind is like a filter, and it filters out some things, and it sometimes filters out the positives and only focuses on the negative. If your distorted cognitive distortion is mental filtering, just for example. So you're trying to identify the cause. If you could, you would. But what's happening is you're identifying something else as the cause. And oftentimes we get stuck in this space that it's someone else. This person did this to me and they caused me to. They made me. Well, no one can cause you to do anything and no one else can make you do anything. It's you doing it. So when you're trying to identify the cause, oftentimes you're looking in the wrong place and you're looking at another person and another event, another situation, and you're disassociating or disconnecting yourself and your feelings from that by blaming or putting this cause on something outside of yourself. And that's sometimes what journaling can do if you're not very strategic with it. And oftentimes there's so much heightened emotion. You're on the high of this, and okay, my therapist told me to journal, so I'm going to journal, but I'm at the height of this. And now I'm looking at that person, or this situation didn't happen, and this thing that's outside of me, it's having you disconnect from yourself, thus strengthening and reinforcing that this external event is the cause or the problem. And that in itself is the problem itself. So trying to identify the cause, you're actually coming up with more reasons, justifications, and excuses. So strengthening the disconnection from yourself. And then it has you generally next steps are identify the behavior. This is a good thing, but it's often overlooked or skipped in journaling, I felt. And we want to not only identify the behavior, but identify our behavior. But oftentimes people will identify the behavior. Well, this person did that, and then it made me feel. Again, that just doesn't exist. No one else can make you feel. But when you identify your feelings and your behaviors, I felt blank when, and really connect to yourself in that way. But that's where most people get stuck, because what happens is when we're journaling, we're consciously thinking about it. And the conscious mind is about this big compared to the unconscious mind. This is this big. Consciously, about 5%, 5 to 10%, whereas unconsciously or subconsciously, those words are used interchangeably, about 90 to 95%. But when you're journaling, it's a conscious task. And so you're trying to identify this event or this behavior where when you were actually in it, the majority of what was running was unconscious experiences and unconscious connections. And when you're journaling, you're trying to do this consciously when you're trying to work through your emotions. I hope you're picking up the implications. Fail, 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 fail. That's why it oftentimes doesn't work and is really difficult to establish as a pattern, a routine. Some people are great at it, but even the people that I connect with that are great at it still get to this point where they're stuck. And they've journaled and journaled and journaled and do really enjoy the release of journaling, but still feel stuck. That's because of that disconnection. You're getting it out consciously, but what's causing those feelings to come up that need to be released through journaling are unconscious. And that's the biggest difference. That's where I work with my clients. We work in that unconscious space so that consciously problem doesn't exist, or it exists on a different scale. It's much, much, much smaller. It doesn't feel so overwhelming or so empowering and so in control, whereas you feel much more in control. And this is like a little bump in the road or a little blip instead of this volcano erupting. And then oftentimes I've had in journals in the past challenge the emotion. Well, again, another implication, challenge the emotion. That's usually what caused the emotion, was this challenge, this kind of head to head. And especially in the space that I work in toxic relationships or in childhood trauma, or past traumas, you've been challenged. You've been challenged and led to believe that your feelings are inadequate or irrelevant. You've been challenged. You're feeling one way, and this person stepped in to your space in your world and challenged that and made you feel wrong, made you feel insignificant, made you feel much smaller than you were because they challenged your emotions. And then you're taught and encouraged to do that in journaling. Of course, it's not going to feel good. And if you've stayed with me this far, you may have realized maybe that's why I can't be consistent with it because it feels challenging. It feels hard. It feels difficult. I don't like it. Well, your mind is hardwired to move you away from pain. And oftentimes it'll move you away from pain by just laying down or giving in or being a people pleaser or being the fixer or the peacekeeper. Okay, I don't like conflict. And sometimes journaling can feel like conflict, especially if you're encouraged to challenge the very emotion that you're feeling. So, was my anger appropriate to the situation? If you would ask me, I'd go, well, yeah, otherwise it wouldn't have been there, right? And when you're challenged to look at it, if you think about that question, was my blank, the feeling appropriate to the situation? Obviously, it felt like it was. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done it. And so when you're trying to look at it from a different perspective or challenged to look at it from a different perspective, oftentimes the mind just kicks in and shuts down and gets even more of that feeling, gets even more angry. And then you may be prompted to journal the answer to a question like, is this situation something I can control? And then your conscious mind kicks in and goes, well, no, I can't control when this person says this to me, when my boss does that to me. I can't control when my kids XYZ. I can't control when my partner XYZ. And if this is out of control, out of my control, is this something that I have to accept and tolerate? That's a journal question that I used to be encouraged to answer. And it was like, seriously? And oftentimes it can just cause more of that feeling, more tension when you're encouraged to challenge it. So, a lot of this has to do with emotional regulation, and you go to a therapist or you journal to try and regulate or work through your emotions, and it just causes more of that emotion. It causes more distress, more anger, more frustration. And when that's the case, there's something else there. There's something, pardon me, there's something else to take a look at, and that's that unconscious space that's there. And without doing that, you may notice that you're still stuck. You're still feeling those feelings, even though you're trying things like going to, a traditional talk therapist or counselor or something like that. Not to discredit those, they're very beneficial to some people in some situations. But the clients that I work with have done that and are still stuck. And they've been encouraged to do things like breathing exercises, meditation exercises, journaling exercises. And although they may be helpful, they're at this point where they still feel challenged and they just want to be free from these emotions that seem to have a lock or a hold on them. And if that's where you're at, then I completely understand that. Again, some of those things work for some people, and sometimes they work for a time, and then what once worked doesn't seem to have the same impact or effect anymore. And if that's where you're at, then there's another level and another layer, a deeper place to go within yourself to truly break free from that. And then maybe, just maybe, the journaling, the meditation, the breathing exercises can have a whole nother impact because now there's this new space within you. So if you stuck with me through this whole video, thank you. And again, not to discredit anything that's out there. There's so many different modalities and ways to break through and break free from those things that seem to have a hold on you, especially when they seem consuming and overwhelming emotionally. And that's the difference in what I do when I work with my clients, using hypnosis, using hypnotherapy, using rapid transformational therapy to have you quickly, very, very quickly break through all of those things that are holding you back today. So if any of this resonated with you and that's where you're at and you'd like to connect, please just click on the link in the description below this video and you can find more information. You can find my website and ways that we can connect and talk about possibly working together one-on-one and seeing all of the success stories and the results that others have gotten when they were stuck in the same place that you are. So thank you guys. Hope you have a wonderful day and I look forward to connecting with you very soon.